Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depends where you're joining from today. So today we have a session that is very, very interesting. It follows on the session that we had yesterday. Yesterday, we were looking at green hydrogen across the MENA region, the opportunities, the business models, where they are. And today we're focusing on something, in my eyes, even more interesting, which is the uses for hydrogen in industry itself, how it can be deployed. And we know there is like a very energy intensive industries that can really benefit from the decarbonization potential of hydrogen and also ammonia and methanol and other such power fuels. So with us today, we have three top experts in the topic who are going to be talking to us about what they're doing in their own company and their experience. And I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves. So I'd like to start with Sakia from PDO. Please, could you unmute your microphone and tell us just a little bit about you, Sakia?
Right, I'm Zakia Al-Azri. So assalamu alaikum, everyone. I have completed my studies in New Zealand, where I spent actually a third of my life in there. Did my PhD on solar hydrogen production. And then coming back to Oman, I worked as a lecturer in Sultan Qaboos University for almost 1.5 years, and recently joined Petroleum Development Oman 1.5 years as a corporate research and development advisor within the new technology implementation team at Corporate Planning Director.
Thank you very much. Balaikum salam, Sakia, to you as well. And yes, more on that later. Where are you based today, Sakia? You're in Oman at the moment, right?
I am in Muscat in Oman, Muscat. So it's exactly 11 a.m.
Excellent. Okay, so we have also with us Mohammed Atari from ACWA. Please, Mohammed, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Belen and ATA team for putting together this webinar. It's always a pleasure to take part of these discussions. I am Mohammed Atari. I've spent almost the last half decade working with ACWA Power, focusing predominantly on renewable energy and water desalination sustainable projects across the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Asia region. And today we'll be talking a little bit about something which is relatively new and what we believe is the next frontier in terms of decarbonization on top of the power and water.
And Mohammed, where are you based today?
I am based out of Dubai, and I've spent the coronavirus pandemic lockdown here as well. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you very much. And last but most certainly not least, Christoph from NG. Please, could you introduce yourself shortly, Christoph?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here, and thank you to ATAISite for this invitation. It's a morning time in Paris. I'm actually currently based in Paris because of COVID confinement, and I was previously in Dubai with the NG team there. I've been working with NG for a number of years, based most recently in Jakarta, where I was developing renewable projects, especially geothermal, and then microgrids, solar, hydro project as well across the peninsula there, the archipelago there. And recently focusing on hydrogen, which is a fascinating subject, and I will be very happy to share this with you this morning.
I certainly agree with you. It's a very, very interesting topic. And we have people here even from Mexico. I cannot even imagine what time it is there, like 10 hours before here. But we have people from Tunis, from Germany, from India, from Oman, Bahrain. Anyway, welcome everyone, from Dubai, of course. Welcome everyone, and let's get to it. So I'm going to ask Sakia to share your screen so that we can see it. And meanwhile, you get ready, share your screen, and mute your microphone. I'm just going to tell you guys in the audience a little bit more about how the structure is going to work today. We're going to have 3 presentations for each of them, and they're going to focus on similar but slightly different topics. It's very interesting because I don't think you get to have a major oil company, a major energy company worldwide, and one of the largest IPPs, renewable IPPs out there. Is kind of incredible, this team that we have here today. So we're going to learn a lot from them. So once the presentations are over, we will take questions, time permitting, because we're hoping to take questions anyway. So the questions, please don't send them through the chat. The chat you use to introduce yourselves and for us to chat about things. But use the questions through the Q&A box at the bottom, okay? Because we can monitor them easily. We can see which ones has been answered and which ones haven't. And so that you know, we're recording this session. So you will have, in a few days, we'll send you an email with a link to the recordings and also the materials. So you will have access to everything thereafter, okay? And without further ado, Sakija, go for it. The floor is yours.
Right. Thanks, Helen, for the great introduction. And I would like to thank ATA Insight for the great opportunity in inviting me for today's talk. So I thought of presenting PDO, new energies and hydrogen as an opportunity for PDO that we have started this year. So nice to meet everyone, really. And the way that I'm going to start is I thought of sharing the company vision with everyone and to let everyone have a direction on what our focus area is, our people, is how we really continuously develop them, encourage them to really look at and explore the world with so many opportunities, especially when it comes to economy diversification. And we don't only add great value to the company, but to Oman as a whole and our shareholders. So what is BDO? Who are we? BDO is a leading exploration and production company in Oman. It delivers the majority of the country's crude oil and natural gas. But above all, it really delivers the excellence of its people, sustainable value creation, as well as businesses that are beyond the oil and gas industry. The company is owned by the government, 60% of interest, Shell, 34% interest, Total 4%, and Partex of 2% interest. So the gas fields in Oman are actually exclusively operated by BDO, but on behalf of the government. So BDO is a non-liability and non-loss basis company and officially revenue neutral. With a capex of $5.3 billion and OPEX of $2 billion as per 2019. We manage large reservoirs of oil fields and large portfolios, and our focus is not only really on the oil and gas. We really want to stay the course by trying to optimize the value that we can achieve from oil and gas production in a very sustainable manner, but also look at economy diversification beyond oil and gas. So to really start looking at the hydrogen opportunity in BDO and what are the challenges that we are facing that really linked us to look at hydrogen to unlock some of these challenges that we're facing in the company. Looking at BDO power consumption as general, as you can see, 68% of power consumption in BDO is consumed for oil production, while remaining is for governmental gas. Most of that power consumption during oil production is actually consumed in well lifting, water disposal, gas compressors, water injection. Water as well is a very challenging area where we produce 9 barrels of oil per 1 barrel of 9 barrels of water per 1 barrel of oil. And all of these activities and more that are coming with the mega projects, increased water cutoff, rising OPEX due to the aging fields, more EOR projects, which is expected and anticipated to increase by 7% for the next 5 years. All of these are the challenges that we're facing. energy demand is increasing, not only in BDO, but all over the world. BDO has actually implemented strategies to manage the energy challenges, and it's based on these 6 pillars that you can see in this clear. I'm not able to share all of the KPIs and targets of the company for 2030 at ATA Insight today, unfortunately, but there are glances of them where some of these are actually even worldwide mission for everyone to achieve. Today I'm really going to focus on the renewable energy aspect, where we have a target of achieving 30% of BDO power consumption by 2030. What are the projects that's been implemented and deployed to really represent the success of BDO in that area? We have recently commissioned 100 megawatt solar IPP project back in May this year. We're having solar car park at the headquarters, and BDO is actually helping the government and many entities to really implement and deploy the solar technology all over the nation, from management knowledge and lean practices and all the project management skills that we have. Currently, this year, a feasibility study on wind is actually kicked off back in March 2020, and I think it's going to stay for 1 year to really look at the outcomes, but starting with 10 to 20 megawatts, going to up to 50 megawatt project. And of course, the Mir'a, one of the largest in the world for the solar steam production, where it's actually used for enhanced oil recovery. Down in Amal field in PDO. So Oman is gifted really with the solar and wind resources, as you can see, and it's amongst the highest in the region for both solar and wind, which is really motivating not only BDO but many players within Oman and at the region to implement these technologies at larger scale, where it really can help in supporting cheap electricity utilization. So BDO is actually positioned for success in the energy transition. And one of the directions that BDO is actually going towards is to really transform from only being a fossil fuel-based company into a fully fledged energy company, looking at many aspects for economy diversification, for renewable energy, water management, as well as energy efficiency, flare gas monetization. So many aspects and many players, they're learning from PO experience. So why renewable is very attractive for PO in particular, because of many elements. The PDO Block 6 area, concession area, is actually it occupies about a third of the country. And that really, within these locations where our oil and gas operation, it's very populated. It's spanning all over the country with the spanning land park. It's flat locations. We're having grid infrastructure, transformation, solar and wind resources with the excellent practices in project management, lean, logistics, technology, the cutting edge technologies, as well as the knowledge management. So why hydrogen? And when it comes to the hydrogen journey in PDO, it is a pioneer. We are starting this journey, starting the dialogue back in 2019, and we have kicked off a study this year, a couple of months ago. And I thought it would be really interesting to share with everyone what are the business drivers behind this project. And usually what we do, we start small, and then we grow. So we start with piloting technologies to really learn from it, and to study how we can rescale it up in a better kind of magnitude. So we really want to introduce hydrogen as a green fuel in Oman, which never been done at national level. Explore new opportunities, new business opportunities for the company with the new company, what we call the new company, which we are calling it Energy Development Oman, which will not only, it will be a sort of a daughter company for BDO, which will look at many economy diversification to help BDO to really invest and utilize its people and skills for many other projects beyond its Block 6 areas. Reduce, of course, the fossil fuel consumption, particularly the natural gas and diesel, definitely to reduce the greenhouse gas footprint. Increase the internal capability, and this is very important to us, to really build skilled people and to transfer that knowledge to many other entities within the country, and of course to increase the in-country value by employing our people, as well as creating more job opportunities and small, medium entrepreneurs. So we're doing in BDO currently, we have awarded a study to a consultant company, RHYNO, based in Belgium, where they're looking at 2 different locations. The first one is in Muscat, particularly at the headquarters, utilizing the solar car park projects and how we can really link it to mobility, so hydrogen to mobility in particular. We are still in the exploration phase at what capacity we want to go for. Another location is to really utilize 100 megawatt that's been just commissioned, and to really tackle 2 areas, the hydrogen injection into the gas pipeline, as well as replacing diesel generators at the remote sites for water master beds, ESP wells, some contractor camps with fuel cells. So the study will actually be conducted for 7 months. It's going, and hopefully we are looking for the outcomes of it. So I thought at the end, would like to thank you all for being here today, and I would like to invite everyone to visit BDO Technology Provider Hub, where if you will see all of our challenges posted in the TPH. But it's not, you're not limited with those challenges. You can always, if you have any general idea, you go into general and post your technology or your ideas into there, so we can screen them and evaluate. And please feel free to use my email to approach me. And thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Takiya. It was a very interesting presentation. And before you ask, because you will, yes, you will get this presentation with Takiya's email, so don't worry about that. And I now like to ask, actually, let's keep going. There is a question for you, by the way, Takiya, but we'll deal with that later if you want to just answer it by text. And I'd like to ask Mohammed now to share his screen and prepare for his presentation. So we move along to the next speaker. And just remember, just for those who joined, that after we are recording this session, we will send you the link to the presentations and also the video. And go ahead, Mohammed, we're ready for you, but remember to unmute. Perfect.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me well. Hello again. So I think we've already done the introductions. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of ACWA Power for those who don't know us. So ACWA Power basically builds, owns, invests, and operates large utility-scale power and water projects. We currently have a portfolio of 34 gigawatts of power. It's basically the size of the power that's produced in Egypt, and around almost close to 6 million cubic meter per day of desalinated water. We have an asset base which is very close to $50 billion, and we are present in 12 countries, predominantly in the Middle East, North Africa, South Africa, and Southeast Asia regions, and very soon in the near Asia. We're a very diverse company with a lot of nationalities, and we have a focus on localizing most of the work that we do in the countries where we invest and where we operate. Some overview of also some of the accolades that we've done. In the time the projects were tendered, ACWA Power has had many breakthrough and many lowest tariffs for utility scale, for solar power, for the PV power, and also for the CSP, and also for the water desalination. So to date, on the IPP model, we hold one of the lowest tariffs worldwide. And we also have one of the largest projects in solar PV, in solar CSP, and in power desalination plants as well. This would make sense to you later to see how that makes sense for us to start looking into hydrogen. I wanted maybe to step a little bit back. Maybe there were people who were not present in the webinar yesterday, but just basically, what is hydrogen and what is used for? So hydrogen can be a medium which can be used either as an end product or as an interim product. So hydrogen can be used for mobility, can be used for power production. It can be used as a heat for industry and buildings, and a feedstock for chemicals and products. I've highlighted in red those segments that we're going to be looking at least partially in the chemicals industry, fertilizers and ammonia, for the steel, and also a quick overview on where hydrogen fuel cell vehicles stand in the mobility sector. How is hydrogen produced and how it is consumed? I found this graph where basically you can see that most of the hydrogen today is produced from conventional sources. The predominant source of producing hydrogen today is through natural gas, through the process which is called steam methane reforming, where basically you take natural gas together with the water, and you compress them in order to get hydrogen, and you have a CO2 as byproduct. Just for information, for each ton or for each kilogram of hydrogen that you produce through SMR, you produce also 9 kilogram or 9 equivalent ton of CO2, which means that the process is heavily conventional and heavily emitting of CO2. So unfortunately today, this is how most of the hydrogen is produced. Where is it used? If we talk about the feedstock, more than half is used for ammonia, but also for refining. The rest is used in other uses such as methanol, transport, etc. So by now you have an overview of how the hydrogen is produced today. Now you hear a lot about green hydrogen. Now green hydrogen is the process of producing hydrogen using the process of electrolyzers. I'm sure you're familiar with the term. So you basically combine power and water through either alkaline or proton exchange membranes in order to produce hydrogen. It's a purely green process, and once that is done, then you can use the hydrogen as a feedstock for the other industrial applications. Today we wanted to focus on the ammonia. So ammonia is so most of the hydrogen that is produced is used in order to create ammonia. Ammonia is the chemical that is used mostly in fertilizers in the agricultural industries. So the way it works, ammonia is basically in H3. I hope there are some of the scientific minds out there. So we use the synthesis of ammonia in order to get from hydrogen and from nitrogen. We get nitrogen basically from the air, and we separate the molecules of the air to nitrogen and oxygen, combine that with hydrogen to get ammonia. We store ammonia, is then created in its liquid form, and the advantage of ammonia is that it can be stored. It can be stored and can also be shipped internationally using typical LPG carriers. So it's a good medium to transport energy. And then we store it at the end at the import terminal, either to be used as ammonia. One particular application which is not yet, I would say, proven at large scale is we can crack the ammonia and we can produce, we can get hydrogen at the end. Because one of the issues of hydrogen is that it doesn't travel well, so it's very complicated to ship as of today the liquid hydrogen. There's I believe only one utility scale ship that is being developed in Japan right now. But we can use ammonia as a medium if we want to use hydrogen for other applications. But for the time being, that is still something that we're still looking into. Yeah. Now, this is the typical ammonia process. Now, when we talk about green ammonia, and the purpose of this presentation is to show how we can decarbonize some of these industrial sectors. So the way to do it is basically to create and to generate green hydrogen in order to generate green ammonia. For that to make sense and for ammonia to be green, not only you need green hydrogen, but you need all the power and water sources that are involved in the whole value chain to be renewable. So you need carbon-free renewable power in the overall process of ammonia synthesis, for the air separation units, for the electrolysis. And of course, the difference here is that some of these processes for the electrolyzer and for the ammonia loop, you would need to have a certain continuity of procurement of power. And there, in this overall process, either you use the power storage, or you can store hydrogen in times where you cannot produce power, in order for the ammonia loop to continue operating, because it has to be, there is a certain load that it has to be continuous for the ammonia production. So yeah, so this is a little bit different from typical power, because in power you just produce electricity, you inject it in the grid. But here you have an integrated system, and therefore you need to optimize the overall inputs for each subsystem for it to make sense and for it to be competitive. So this is the overall structure of how we can make green ammonia. Recently, we have announced a very ambitious project that we have signed with NEOM in KSA, together with the Air Products, where we want to produce more than 1 million tons of ammonia for local and also for export. And it's actually green ammonia, so it's pure green ammonia. That is a project that we are working on. It's a $5 billion project. Hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, we'll see it materializing. It will be solely using the solar and wind potential, the good solar wind potential of NEOM for that to make it happen. We're also looking at a number of projects also in the GCC, in Oman and in UAE, but also in Morocco. For those who don't know, Morocco is the second or the largest or the third largest fertilizers producer. So it makes perfect sense to have ammonia or green ammonia enter into the value chain of this production to decarbonize that section. The second part of my presentation, I wanted to speak a little bit about steel, the steel process, and steel production is actually one of the areas, one of the industry applications which can be easily and 100% decarbonized. I'm showing you here two basic, the two main steel making process, either through blast furnaces. And this is a process where we basically burn coal in ovens to get coke, and then we mix it together with limestone and with iron ore in order to get steel, in order to get iron and steel at the end. It's a very energy demanding process and very, very polluting. The second one is direct reduced iron. It's basically the process where you want to remove oxygen from the composition of the ore. And for that, you don't need as much energy as for the blast furnace. And you only require natural gas for that to happen. It's both an endothermic and exothermic reaction. which allows you to get basically close to solid state of iron that you can use in order to create to make steel. The advantage of the second one is that it's a process where you can actually integrate hydrogen in the process. In the existing DRIs, you can, without making almost any change, you can include almost 30% of hydrogen, and if that hydrogen is green, that you can say that the steel that you're making is 30%, has a 30% composition of green elements. There is a way that we can make it 100% green, and it's basically the same process, but we don't use reformers, because as we said earlier, the steam methane reforming produces carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen. You can use electrolyzers in the process, and with that, you are a pure green steel producer. And for those who don't know, so steel making accounts for almost 8 to 9% of the overall emissions. So making this transition would be one of the major decarbonization paths in the industry. For the pure hydrogen-based steel manufacturing plants, I've put here a list of the projects that were recently announced. So there is a lot of them that come in from Europe. Typically, Europe takes the lead to do pilot projects. So there's a number of the biggest, or most of the biggest steel producing companies and they have already done announced a lot of pilots. And recently, if I'm not mistaken, the last week or two, one of them in Germany has already started operating on hydrogen. It's probably not green hydrogen that they're feeding, but it's if the process is there and green hydrogen can prove economical, then that is definitely gonna work. Last but not least, I wanted to touch base a little bit on the mobility in the transport sector. And as most of you know, so in the mobility sector, everybody hears about Tesla, everybody hears about battery electric vehicles, but there is also fuel cell vehicles which are which use hydrogen as a fuel. And actually, before this boom of electrical vehicles, it was thought that the hydrogen vehicles would be the first stepping stone. The reason why it didn't pick up is actually the application for the fuel cell is only limited to these vehicles, whereas for the battery electric vehicles, lithium-ion is used across a lot of value chains. So for the price to go down of the vehicles, that remains a challenge, and it requires a lot of policy and a lot of infrastructure that is required in order for them to make it happen. However, we believe that in the next 3 to 4 years, the price is going to go down, and it's going to be predominantly driven by heavy duty vehicles, because you have a larger energy intensity with hydrogen than that of the batteries. And therefore, if you are using heavy trucks or buses, the economics make more sense than using battery electrical vehicles. And notice here that I'm comparing only with battery electrical vehicles, because for us, clean mobility should not be compared with conventional mobility. If all of you remember when solar PV started, everyone was saying it was too expensive. But as it goes bigger in scale, then the price go down. So we need to compare apples with apples. So yeah, we believe that mobility may not pick up as soon as, let's say, the industry, the ammonia, the steel processes, but for sure it is there to come. And the major driver here is the policy and the government to make it happen, and to have hydrogen fuel stations, predominantly started by heavy duty vehicles. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for this great presentation. Going into a lot of issues. I'm going to ask Christoph to share your screen, please, if you may. And you know, people keep joining us, so just to let you know, please send your questions through the Q&A box. There is a couple more questions for Sakia and also for Mohammed. I'm sure more questions from Mohammed will come. But as soon as Christoph's presentation is over, we'll take some questions from you guys. And Christoph, yes, I can see your presentation perfectly. So just remember to unmute your microphone. It's at the top on the left. When you have a presentation on, the whole thing changes. Wow, you guys are quick. You're answering those questions really quickly. But I'm sure that people have more questions out there for you. And for those that have asked and we had a lot of questions, we will send you a link to the materials. Christoph, now
yes.
I think we can hear you. Yes, and we can see it. It's in large screen, so go for it.
Excellent. So I'm going to lead through now, after Zakia, after Mohamed, to a particular sector, which is the mining sector. It's very, very good progression before with the previous speakers. And a few words on energy. Energy is one of the key utilities. It's the leader in IPP. In terms of generation, it's about 100 gigawatt generation worldwide. It's 70 billion euro revenues, 150,000 people in 70 countries. And ENGIE has embarked into a very strong move into decarbonization and the energy transition. And we have created 2 years ago a dedicated team which is looking at hydrogen. So we have within ENGIE a worldwide team of about 50 to 100 people, which are specialized into the development of hydrogen solutions. So we are basically developing solutions and looking at the various sectors where it makes more sense. And we serve the customers in these different sectors to develop their own solution together in a co-creative manner. So we want to become a leader in this renewable hydrogen and accelerate this transition. The vision of ENGIE of the hydrogen economy is very much that it is the missing link for the decarbonization of the industry and the power sector. And we look at the different angles. So on the power generation side, of course, to see the decarbonization of the power generation with the increase in the development of renewable, and through this development also see an adoption of hydrogen as notably an enabler of the renewable, the intermittent renewable. One of the issues of the renewable that you know is, of course, that it's intermittent, and hydrogen is a solution for massive and long-term storage of this energy. So we look at this particular aspect and a number of locations where large-scale storage is possible, for example, with underground systems. Second, we look at, of course, the use of hydrogen in the energy-intensive industries. So it was mentioned earlier with Zakia and Mohamed, and the fertilizer industry, the steel industry is, of course, very good player and significant contribution to the greenhouse gas emission, and mining is part of it. And then, of course, we are looking at the use of hydrogen in the cities, and so for heat and cold generation, transport, and transport is also a key sector, and we are looking at all logistics elements from shipping, aviation, and on airport transportation. But to really have the hydrogen economy pick up, we need early adopters. Today, there is a significant difference, of course, of the cost of hydrogen when it is generated by electrolysis, and the cost of hydrogen when it's generated by SMR, by still method reforming. So we need to make sure that we can initiate this virtuous circle, which will enable all the players in the value chain, the technology providers, and all the partners across the value chain to be more and more efficient. But for this, we need to have early adopters. So we need to have partners in these key sectors, which are making bold move to adopt hydrogen in a progressive manner. So it is, of course, in the oil and gas industry. It can be in some industries. And Mohamed mentioned the project in KSA on ammonia, which is a fantastic example and definitely an example to be followed. NG is, as I was mentioning, we are located, the NG hydrogen unit, we are located in different countries, and of course in locations where it makes more sense. Where can we develop green hydrogen solutions? It's of course where renewable power is at the most competitive level. And for example, in South America, Chile is an example. So we have a team there. In Africa, Middle East region is of course a key example. And in Europe, there is a very strong move with the European community to develop hydrogen solutions. So we are of course having our base there. We have also a team in Australia and Singapore as well. So what about green mining and what solutions we could bring for green mining? Mining is a sector which is very energy intensive and which is often located in remote areas. So in terms of energy supply, we have some on-site renewable power generation, which can be a solution which can decrease, of course, the CO2 emissions very significantly. And so we are looking at delivering this for the mining industry. And we are also looking at integrating the different sources of energy in a progressive manner. So developing energy management systems which will enable this nicely, and to have this hybridization of the power generation in a progressive manner and in the most optimal manner. So this is the energy supply, but we are also looking at other elements of the mining industry and the mining operation themselves. This is about a lot about there is all the logistics. So it is the hauling trucks which are used, and it's also all for the underground mine in particular. It is all the energy which is used to manage the ventilation and all the transportation for the material and equipment and people within the mines. And then downstream, we have also the use of energy for the chemical processes, for the refining. And this is, of course, another key aspect as well. So we usually approach the subject in an overall manner. And we are having a team which has developed special methodology to analyze each particular step, and we are trying to develop this in the most replicable manner. The idea is to have a solution which can be, of course, duplicable, replicable, not only in one given site, but also for this particular industry or for this particular industrial player elsewhere. So we are looking at all the different components and trying to analyze it step by step. So if we are looking at this roadmap of progressively developing the decarbonization together with the miner, we are looking at what is, of course, the baseline, the current situation, and how we can progressively, as I said, decarbonize the different components. So I mentioned there's the power supply, which is the grid in a number of cases, and of course the gensets for when the grid is not available, and this is very often a very significant contribution of the CO2 emission. We have the thermal processes, I mentioned them as well. We have the electrical processes as well. Purely in a number of cases, it can be electrolysis as well. And then the mobility, as I mentioned. Then integrating in a number of places, and it's the case in Chile, for example, PV, because it's a very good place for irradiation. In other places, like in the Middle East, you can have a very nice combination of wind and solar, and to have the proper management system and the storage, as I mentioned. So in location where underground storage in saline cavities is not available, of course we are hybridizing hydrogen storage with lithium battery systems, and so we are looking at every single piece of the puzzle and trying to optimize it jointly, and having a progressive approach where we are looking step by step at the decarbonization target that the miner would have for its particular site and worldwide for its activity. So moving from 20-30% target to of course the 100% target. A number of players have an horizon for 2030 and zero full decarbonization for 2050. So moving on, we have developed a particular tools and methodology which are modeling the energy needs, also the investment costs, and looking at also how every single piece of the puzzle can be used in the most flexible manner, and the time factor, how one particular source can be used in given time to play with the intermittency that I mentioned earlier. We have had some recent announcement. Last year in October, we announced that we started a collaboration with Anglo American on a mine in South Africa, which is a platinum mine for developing a proof of concept for large mining trucks. So there are different components, of course, in a project like this. It is the mining truck itself. So it is a partnership that the mining company Anglo American has with the provider of this particular truck, and I would say the upstream part, which is for the power generation, using developing a solar farm, the electrolysis, and looking at one particular component which could be overlooked, which is the refueling capacity for this type of truck. Optimizing the use of this large mining truck, it means that they need to be in operation 24/7, and they can't be immobilized for a long time. And one aspect is, for example, accelerating and optimizing the refueling capacity of hydrogen within this truck. So this is the example I was mentioning, and typically the payload capacity for a mining oil truck is about 300 tons, and in terms of size it's about 200 cars, considering the car for example, the Toyota Mirai that you would be able to use as an hydrogen vehicle. So it is very significant. And to have an idea, I'm looking at what is the impact of one particular truck. A truck is consuming about 3,000 liters of diesel a day, and replacing it, we would be having a consumption about 100,000 kilos of hydrogen per day. And from the refueling speed that you would have on a normal, I would say, hydrogen fueled vehicle, you would need to increase the speed by 5 times. The typical refueling station that you have today would be using something like 3 to 4 kilograms of H2 per minute, and here to be optimized, we should have 20 kilo of refueling. This is an example. Recently, we announced that we have started another project in Chile, also for mining trucks with Mining 3, which is an organization developing decarbonization for the mining sector. And we announced so to have we had a subsidy from the Corfo fund for this particular project. So this is what I wanted to mention as an example of what can be done for decarbonization of the mining sector. There are different components that can be looked at, but today one journey which is very important to start, because as I mentioned, there are even for this single component for the transportation and these large mining trucks, there are different pieces which need to be optimized, and the cycle for the technology to be at the level which is required for the efficiency and performance of a mining site is of course long, and it is very important to have, as I mentioned, early adopters, companies which are devoting resources to help to have this virtuous circle start, and the journey should be coming now and together. So it's a very good example to see how the different entities like PDO, like ACWA can join hands and work on these projects, which will be giving a very strong contribution if we are looking at the horizon 2025, 2020, 2030 for the industry to be meeting the objective it's been given.
Thank you very much, Christophe, and it sure is great to see, when a project actually comes to life. We can talk about hydrogen all day long, but then you see like the hydrogen truck going around the mine with all of that, whatever it is that they're carrying, but there's tons and tons. You can see then, why all of this research and development and all this collaboration makes sense. So thank you very much. It's been great actually to learn about the new projects and how it's been used. We oftentimes talk about technology like in an abstract term, and this is really interesting to see it at work. So I see that both Mohammed and Sakiya have been really busy answering those questions. So, and we only have like 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and ask one that has been repeated a few times, and I know that you guys have been. The item of cost. Of course, at the moment, this is very costly, and someone was asking there, how do we make this so that these things happen, these projects happen? In particular, I want to ask about, the public-private collaboration, whether you see it possible, whether it's the only way that these things can work. And I want to let it open, to you guys, particularly Mohammed, Sakiya, you've been looking at the question, so you perhaps, can understand a little bit better exactly what people were referring to. So, any views on that, on how it can work to make sure we accelerate and we make sure that hydrogen's here to stay and it becomes affordable really quickly? So Sakiya, do you want to start? You guys can open your microphones now if you like, and let's just talk.
Sure. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, great. So when it comes to the public collaboration, I'm just going to give an example of Oman in particular. There's so many initiatives going on at national level. BDO is actually collaborating with other companies. Let's say one of the examples is the 250 megawatt electrolyzer project that is done in Port of Duqm for hydrogen export, and we're learning from them, and there's a huge collaboration in terms of building capabilities and knowledge sharing in terms of hydrogen export as a green carrier or as a methanol or a green ammonia. There is also a lot of other initiatives where we have just a green hydrogen research center that's been actually activated here in German university in Oman, with so many other stakeholders involved to really support. There is a Oman hydrogen economy study at national level, where most of oil, perhaps all of oil and gas companies within the country is actually part of that study. Fertilizer companies, refineries, even food companies. So many players taking part of that study that is led actually by Ministry of Oil and Gas in Oman. And one part of it is to really look at the regulations and policies and incentives. What are the changes that Oman has to make to really make these policies much more feasible to create business cases for hydrogen and for investors to come and invest here in the country. Especially it's a new field and a new direction, to particularly speaking on the green hydrogen through electrolysis. We're having steam methane reformers here in Oman, and Salala Methanol as an example. I think a company, Oman OQ, they do produce hydrogen, and it's been exported in a form of methanol, but that's actually being produced by steam methane reforming. But looking at green hydrogen in Oman, it is starting a huge dialogue starting since last year. One of the directions why we really wanted to be part of this. So there is collaboration, and I'm sure if we expand that to at regional level, going outside of the country, I'm sure there's huge support, and we can really collaborate and partner even with many players regionally, especially after the direction and the transition of the company of being a fully fledged energy company.
Thank you very much, Sakia. Do you guys want to add something from the point of view of the private company, or I can move along to another question because we're going to go on, Mohammed?
Maybe you can move to the next question, and then maybe I will answer the same.
You can answer both. Actually, my question was also for the two of you, more about business models. I mean, do you see the current business model already working, sticking, with help, without help from the public side, or do we need a brand new thing? We need to rethink this. Are we in this kind of situation? It was like to throw those at you and see what you came up with.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer at the same time the first and second question. So around 60 to 70% of producing hydrogen cost is cost of power. I'm talking about green hydrogen. So enabling green hydrogen to make sense as a feedstock means that we need to have a significant continuous push for renewables price to go down. So it goes hand in hand with integration of more renewable power projects. So effectively, we need government support and government to commit on the climate goals that they have set. In terms of business model, I mean, effectively, as Christoph has said, so renewable is an intermittent source of power, and therefore there are parts or times in the year where we would need to use probably the grid or use associated facilities to produce green hydrogen or green ammonia. So there should be definitely a lot of synergies that we need the government to be involved in, either as support in terms of policy, but also as support in order for associated facilities in order to make it happen, all under the umbrella of having a clear view that this is something that they want to drive. It's a decarbonization of industries is actually probably more important than having renewable energy, because electricity accounts for a very small fraction of the overall pollution that we see. So definitely government support is required. Then the level of support in industry may vary, for example, from product to another, may vary from industry to mobility to mining. So that is something that definitely will need to be on a case-to-case basis, but for sure government support is required and government vision is required to work with the private companies to make it happen.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And Christopher, you guys working in Chile, South Africa, Middle East, you must come across this issue of business models, business support. Remember to unmute your microphone.
Yes, this is typically, very difficult not to crack. And as was mentioned, it is very important in the initial stage to have the support of the government. The support of the government is not only a financial support in having subsidies on the development of projects, but it's also being active and efficient, meaning that the new regulations helping the implementation of hydrogen solutions coming fast. If you want to have an hydrogen bus running into your city, you will need to have, of course, hydrogen storage, hydrogen refueling stations. You will have the questions is, can an hydrogen fuel bus can be taking tunnels or can be stored indoors and things like that. So the regulation have to be adjusted. And then you need to have also targets. The best is to have targets which are set in time, blending targets. If we want to decarbonize the gases, in Europe, we are looking at having blending targets for natural gas. It is legal in France, for example, to have up to 6% of hydrogen in natural gas. There's been tests in France for up to 20% and even up to 100%. Tests were performed also in the UK. So this has been done. Now the issue is, of course, that your molecule of hydrogen is much more expensive today than your natural gas molecule. So you need to have this. The economics make sense at one point in time. So you need to have also solutions. We call this a contract for difference. So not only we need support for the capex, but support for the opex. So, and this contract for difference would basically give to the developers, to the investors, certainty that there will be support on the opex for a number of years, so that the difference that you would have using green hydrogen or using gray hydrogen would be compensated for 10 years, for example. And this is a key for the implementation of a number of these projects. And this is integrated when you hear the packages which are announced for supporting the hydrogen economy in Europe, for example, this $1 billion which are mentioned in Germany or elsewhere. This includes not only capex subsidies, subsidies for the development of technologies, but also OPEX subsidies for contract of that sort. So it's very important to, now that the concept is there, to start implementing it. And it's on some aspect, it is very slow because regulation and policies make time to emerge.
Well, thank you very much to the three of you for your time, for sharing your know-how with us. Thank you, Zakia. Thank you, Mohammed. And thank you, Christoph. Thank you very much to our partners, Messia, who've made this webinar possible. And for now, I'd like to say goodbye and see you next time. And thank you, everyone, also that is there in the audience. See you next time.
Thank you.